Welcome, Steve, to my channel. I found
Thanks, Vivian.
Steve, yay. I found Steve on Facebook. He had shared his story on a post, and I resonated so much with his optimistic personality and his thriving lifestyle. And I was like, I sent him a message. I was like, Steve, I think it'd be great if you came on my channel and shared your story because you are the kind of people that I interview. Is that something that you'd be interested in? And he said, yes. So here we are today. So, Steve, if you can, we had such a nice little discussion before we even got started here. Steve, if you want to take us back to let us know how the Jehovah's Witnesses came into your family, and then you can talk a little bit about your childhood and what it was like being a Jehovah's Witness. Handing the
Yeah,
mic over
sure.
to you. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Vivian. And I really appreciate the invite too, as well. And it's been really, really good also connecting with you and also others also in the group too. So yeah, just a little bit about me. So our family actually both on my mom's and my dad's side, um, so my mom, her dad, he was a witness. And he actually died actually the year when I was born, actually in 1976. So um, uh, he was actually, why my mom actually became a witness. And then for my dad's side, actually, his mom, she was the one who actually entered into actually the truth actually later on in life. Now, my dad actually learned actually about the witnesses because of my mom. And so that was at the time actually when we were actually living up in Ohio. And that was actually prior to actually, me being born. But they did, of course, learn. I would imagine it's probably in the very early 70s, I believe. And so, of course, when I came along in 1976, they were already, of course, very active already at the time. And so, really, for myself, that's where it all started. My dad, he was actually an elder for many, many years. He was someone, that was, super, super involved, with the organization. Um, he he was also someone, I mean, that was also invited to give, lots and lots of just, public talks. And so, of course, I mean, us as a family, we would always, go with him. He was also involved also with all the conventions as well, too. Also at the time, I believe it was called the district conventions. And so he played a very, just a big role in that. And of course, we were, really involved, very involved. We would help out, of course, with all the conventions and also, circuit assemblies and things like that. My dad also served also as a regular pioneer, and for many years too. So he was, definitely somebody that he was a big example. And so, we obviously had a part to also play in that, we were also meant to also be examples as well, to also in the congregation and also the circuit too, as well. My mom, was also, very supportive of him too, as well, very active. Um, my sisters too as well. So of my three sisters, one she was a regular pioneer for many many years, and also my brother who he also served also in the Arabic in North Richland Hills, Texas, actually for a little while too as well. So also someone that was very very involved. So really, for us, growing up, it was really, I mean, just a way of life. We were very, very busy. Of course, years back, we used to go, of course, to the book study. I think at the time we had it like on Mondays. And then we had the school and the theocratic meeting on Wednesdays. And so we always knew that, of course, those 2 days, we were going to be very busy, of course, during those 2 days. The family study as well, too, Friday evenings. We always had that. Saturday morning service, of course, we would always get up. Sundays, of course, no different too as well, just a very, very busy day. And so really, for me, I mean, growing up, that's what I was, very, very accustomed to as I just grew up, to also be, of course, very busy in the organization. And so helping out to, of course, wherever I could, whether it was, passing microphones, and it was also, of course, giving talks also in the school too, as well. And so, yeah, my path, it was, really meant to be, of course, very involved, with the organization. And so that led to, of course, to other things of me, of course, growing up, within the system. Um, and then I actually got baptized. I was trying to actually remember. I think I believe 12. I think when I was baptized, and so yeah, I mean, since then my path, was to really stay busy, of course, in the organization and to not get in trouble. And so really, that's what I did. Now, I was never like a young pioneer or anything, like that. I did actually go on to actually be appointed a ministerial servant. I was probably like 21 years old. And so I was still, fairly young. And I actually got married when I was 25. And so, up until that time, or actually, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I think up until when I was 27, I think I was a ministerial servant. And then from there, I actually stepped down actually for, I believe about 2 years or so. So yeah, I mean, my childhood, I'll say that I have nothing but, good memories. One of the things that I like to share actually with a lot of the ex members is, look, there's a lot of things, that myself, personally, that I'm very grateful for. So I'm grateful for that I did not get into any trouble. I could have been someone, who I could have very easily, gotten involved, with drugs, with alcohol. Um, and those things, did not happen. And so I am, very grateful, for that. I'm also grateful too, as well, too, because I feel like that it just provided me, with a lot of structure as well, too. And so, those are things that I have actually been able to take, different things, that I've learned, and that I've been able to really now take those things, to help me, of course, in my new life, and that has been very valuable also in my career too, as well. So, although I'll say that, yes, the upbringing, was very strict and it was very different, and obviously no holidays and no birthdays and things like that. I'll say, that I've chosen, to really take the side of just looking at things, very positively, and have said, look, what are the great things, okay, that actually came out of this? And so this is where I'm at today.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Steve. So you got married at 25, and I know you shared before a little bit about what happened in your exit out of your marriage. So how long were you married for? Do you have kids?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Yeah, so I was actually married for 16 years. And so yeah, so I was just turning actually 25, and so 16 years, no kids. I'll say also, the same thing too, also about my marriage. I mean, it was a great marriage. We were definitely a couple that, we were very, very busy in the organization. I mean, it was really, of course, both of our backgrounds, was just to be busy. And so that's, really why, because we did not have any kids, is because, once again, we were so busy. I had actually, so I guess a couple years after we were married, although I stepped down, I did actually get back onto the ministerial servant, uh, list. I can't remember how old I was at the time. And so, of course, was busy, once again there, helped out too also with a lot of the quick build projects, which I believe is now called the local design committee. And so, we stayed busy as a couple. She was also a regular pioneer as well too for many years, and also worked also outside the home. And so really, yeah, I mean, our life, once again, was centered around, of course, serving Jehovah. And we were just very busy. Everything, from of course, um, from having to stay up to date, of course, with all the information, and also studying, and also the meetings, and also field service and things. Like, there was literally just, very rarely, I mean, like, any idle time. And it's what we did, really together, because I mean, that's, what we knew. And at the same time, it also brought us joy as well. And so, that was our path.
Uh, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it. I am curious about, since it was such a great marriage at one point, I know you did this metaphor of pulling the pin from the grenade and having that explode. So, what led up to your divorce, and what was your divorce and your exit strategy all kind of meshed together?
Yeah, yeah, for me, and this is something, I mean, that I've had to deal with, myself, is really owning up, to actually one's mistakes. I like to say, that I am very good at actually admitting, my mistakes, and also accepting, of course, all the consequences, because that's exactly what happened. Um, I My journey, or actually my exit, was more related to actually, some of the expectations that did not that they really did not actually come to life when we were actually applying to actually serve in Bethel. And so there was some last minute changes there
So
that
you were
actually happened.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
you and your wife were applying to serve in Bethel.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we were. Yep,
Uh,
yeah.
as temporary volunteers?
Um, yeah, so this was actually like in the 2015 time frame, when actually the project was happening with Warwick.
Okay.
And so our goal was actually, our intention was is that, we wanted to be there on site.
Hmm.
And so we essentially made all the arrangements that we needed to make to be able to make ourselves available. And when I say we made all the arrangements, I say we made all the arrangements, including we sold our house, we sold a lot of our own personal belongings. I actually resigned actually from a career that I really, really enjoyed. Like, yeah, really, so basically, along the way, okay, there's a process that you go through, and so along the way, you're basically told, "Yep, okay, you're very, very close," and so really, you need to start to get, just all your affairs in order. And so that's really, what we were doing. Is where I foolishly was not thinking about, is I was not thinking about, what if this doesn't work. And so essentially, I took a huge risk, by us, really, I mean, just taking all the steps, that we needed to. And one day we received a letter, and that letter was that because of some major changes to the structure, we were not going to be needed on site, and that we would have the opportunity to serve actually remote. And so at that time, I was already living actually with my sister and with her husband. And so we were living there. Of course, our mentality was, we're going to be moving out of here very quickly. And so when that happened, our own personal circumstances were not such that that's what we wanted to do. And then two, it's not even necessarily what we were actually prepared to do as well. We were fully prepared, to pick up and to move and to obviously, to leave things behind, but to also be cared for also. And so, basically, I actually interpreted the letter of, yeah, we want you to volunteer, but you got to take care of yourself too. And I was not really prepared for it. And that's what ultimately led me, down the path, that I took, to get out. It was actually it was, um, it was a very traumatic event for me because I was always somebody who I always took care of my wife. I always took care of us. Um, and I was really the person who I was very used to, working, and I left behind, a really, really good career, all because I was willing, to go up there, and I was willing to serve, and I was willing, to put, my life on hold. When that didn't happen, and I was really feeling like, because of all the interviews and things that we had, that was what was going to happen. It was a major letdown for me, and it was a major letdown because it hurt me the most, and it caused me the most anxiety that I've ever had in my life. Like I didn't even know what to do next. I mean, I could not even think, clearly. And obviously, too, I mean, I was also too very upset. And I think the thing that really caused me to go off the edge was when I expressed all those feelings, to everyone around me. I was made to feel, and I was even told that I was wrong for feeling the way that I did. And that's what ultimately, made me decide that I no longer wanted to be part of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow, what a story. So how long were you living with your sister waiting for this letter to happen, like from when you sold your house to when you actually got the letter? Like, how long was that time period of living with your sister? And I'm assuming that your sister knew it was only going to be maybe how long, like a couple of weeks?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the part, I mean, that was so hard, obviously, to really know, like in the beginning of just the whole construction project, Warwick, they were calling people left and right, and it was happening, very quickly. And so, we kind of got ourselves wrapped up also in that thought. And so, actually, now that I kind of think about it, like I think we were there with them for probably around 6 months or so. And because, from the point that, we were informed that we were going to serve basically on a remote basis, up until we were able to leave, it was probably, I would say, at least a full 6 months. It may have been longer, but I think it was around 6 months actually.
And at 6 months, which is such a long time to be living with your sister, I can imagine that. I mean, even though you love her, you kind of wanted your own space with your wife. Your situation of living with her and not moving, when you got that letter, did you and your wife say, okay, we need to figure out where to live? Like, what was the steps that followed that?
Yeah, it was more, I think, at the time, when I received the letter, I was, I didn't necessarily voice actually, my discontent, with their decision. And now that I kind of think about it too, again, I really haven't thought about, a lot of the details in a long time, but actually now that I kind of think about it, we kind of continued on still with the process to get ourselves, set up and things, to be able to work, remotely. The problem was is that the anxiety, at least for myself, started to really build up because the process of actually starting to work, remotely, took so long that I was not used to just being idle. And yes, I mean, it was going out in service, every single day, but I'm thinking, well, okay, what do I do? Like I'm not working, I'm not used to this life. Yes, I'm used to, being extremely busy, but I'm not used to going out in service every day and not having any income, coming in and just, truly living off of just, really money, we had saved. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's really, where my anxiety really started to build up. And it's what ultimately, why in the end, why I just opted to, and I said, I don't even want to do this anymore. And so I'm not going to be involved. And so that's what actually led me down the path, to eventually then making my decision.
Wow. And did your wife feel the same? What was her situation like? And is she still with
Yeah.
us?
As far as I know, Vivian, I haven't like I don't know anything, about her. We haven't had any contact until we wrapped up, some of the final things of our divorce, which has probably been 4 years ago or so. And I know that she was very confused and not sure what to do and how to help me. She she was a regular pioneer, at the time, and so she had not worked actually outside the home for the last couple of years of our marriage, and so for her, the lifestyle, was no different than what she had before. She was a regular pioneer, very very busy, and so I just know that my behavior and my change, um, it was very hard on her. And so she did actually help actually remotely for a little while. And so that didn't last long, obviously, because of my own circumstances as I started to really go downhill and just really going really down the path of just no longer wanting to be involved, no longer really wanting to do anything.
And that was, you said, 4 years ago?
Yeah, so I actually got divorced actually in 2016. So it's actually been 6 years now. So
Okay.
our divorce was actually final in January of 2017. I was disfellowshipped in May of 2016, and so yeah, I mean, there is that whole chunk of time there that that there are some very very deep wounds from that time that obviously that had to be dealt with, and that just kind of really took me down a whole different path. And one thing I mean that I like to share with anyone that's actually going through the same process is, look, I there's no way for me to really sugarcoat it and to say this is going to be an easy thing, because it's not. For those of us that were born in, and that we lost our entire worlds, it is very very traumatic. And I don't think really that really that the witnesses understand how traumatic that it is, and really some of the things that it could lead you to do, and some of the very very dark thoughts that you go through. And I'm just sharing I mean, from my own personal experience. 2016, the rest of 2016 and 2017, the only word that I can use to describe it is hell, because it just really had just a major major effect on me. I'll say, for myself, and I'm a big advocate, today, on really getting help for yourself. And I mean professional help. I mean, reaching out to somebody who has an understanding of what we have been through, and that helps you to be able to talk through those things and how to deal with those things and what to do when you're on your own, who to reach out to. Like I'm a huge advocate of that. I really believe, Vivian, that I could have actually been thriving in my life a lot sooner had I decided to actually go down that path. And so, um, what actually happened to me is actually in late 2017. Um, and I'll just also share this. So I was able to get back onto the company that I left prior to leaving because we thought that we were going to Bethel. And I had been there at the time for like 12 years. And so I was able to get back in. And so that's where I went to go work at there full time. But in 2017, I actually connected with a small startup company in Dallas. And that is, kind of where my journey, I guess, began because it all of a sudden it was this huge distraction of me just thinking about all the stuff that I'd been through. And so really I traveled, full time actually across the states over 2018 and 2019. And that kept me, super busy. Like, I mean, I was on the road all the time. I was flying to, of course, new places. I was actually staying in places, for actually 30 days and 45 days. Interestingly enough, actually, one of the places that I went to was actually New York, and I was actually there in New York for about 2.5 months. And actually, the type of work that I was doing, which was actually a company that we did last mile delivery. By that time, of course, all the real estate actually that was owned actually by the Watchtower had already been sold off. And so a lot of these places were actually converted into some really nice homes and also condominiums. And funny enough, I actually went with our team as we were actually activating our service there in New York City. I I actually went on a couple deliveries with our delivery team to no other than old buildings that used to belong to the Watchtower. And these are places, that I had been to, numerous times, before. And it was, yeah, I mean, it was bittersweet. Like I didn't know, what to do, what to say. I just had a lot of, memories there. 2020, well, okay, actually, let me back up. Okay, so I got done traveling, okay, with this company in October of 2019, and there was not going to be any more travel. And my mindset was, I got to find somebody to be with. Like, what's next? And so it's exactly what happened. I actually met somebody. Yeah, she was a worldly girl, and we met. And by December of that year, we were engaged. I really thought that I was just lucky. Like I'm like, oh my God, like how's this possible? I'm just lucky. And that turned out to be a very toxic situation. This is somebody who out in the world, she has a lot of education. She is actually a middle school principal, someone that's highly regarded, but herself, personally have come from a very broken background. And at the time, I had not gotten any help, myself or anything. I had not, really dealt with it. And, this person would always tell me, she's like, you have this black cloud over you. Like, you always have this black cloud. And I tried my best to really explain to her, like, just all the emotions and everything. It turned out to be a super toxic relationship. We ended up breaking up, actually breaking off actually our engagement the week of the COVID lockdowns in March of 2020. And had I not been prepared in a mental state of just all the time that I spent, myself alone, through the end of 2016 and through 2018 and 2019, of course, with all my travels, there was no way that I would have made it through, that whole time because all of a sudden I had actually moved out of her house. moved back to my house that I still had at the time, that actually, thank God, was empty. I was able to move back in there. And of course, we're going through this whole world pandemic, not knowing, what the heck's going on. And so I'm just coming out of this engagement, and my world is just, upside down again. Um, the rest of 2020, I really kept, to myself and stayed focused on really working my career. And I'll say at the very beginning of 21 is really when I started to really feel the effects of not getting any type of professional help. Like I started to really feel like a lot of anger. I was really depressed. I was not happy. Like I was not happy, and obviously, going through that whole experience also with this individual, like what is wrong with me? Like why can't I have somebody, and why does nobody accept me? Why does everybody reject me? And so it was in 21, where I really started actually my journey to say, you know what, this is not how I'm going to live anymore. Like I am going to find whatever help that I need to, and I'm going to get the help, that I need.
And that led you to here, which is a pretty great place. You had to go through all of that. So talk to us about what is happening for you right now. I know you mentioned your parents and your siblings don't speak to you anymore. When was the last time you spoke to them? Was it when you got disfellowshipped? And how is life for you right now? And I also want to mention, and I know that you said this in our previous conversation, is you don't have any college background, but yet you managed to have this great career. And fortunately, they were able to take you back, even though you left them, which is such a great thing. It's a very positive thing that I'm so happy for you that that happened. So yeah, if you can talk about that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I have not had any communication with my family since 2016. And of course, we all know, of course, what the rules are. We also know that, yeah, there are, some circumstances where we can have at least, all those conversations. But, my mindset has always been is, look, fully recognize that I never want to put, my family, and I never want to put any of my old friends in a situation of having to choose between me and Jehovah. That is their personal decision, and I know where their loyalty lies at. You can only come to that mentality once you have been able to overcome like a lot of the side effects of when this happens. And so I've never wanted to put them into that situation. I've never wanted to make them feel guilty for for what's happened, because the reality is that it was my choice to leave. It was my choice, and it was my choice knowing that, okay, there's going to be some heavy consequences here. Yeah, so in terms of my career, I've been fortunate enough in that I've had some really good worldly people that have been some really good mentors to me, that have helped me actually, throughout, my professional career. Um, and and, and I'll say that when we were witnesses, there's definitely skills and traits that that we learned, that are very valuable actually, like out there in the business world. One of the things, for myself, today, so I actually left actually my last company in May of this year, and so have started up actually with a new company in July of this year. I'm the chief operating officer there, and the the thing, that I think probably the top trait, for me is to lead with heart. And that's something that I, firmly believe, that I learned, years back, being in the organization. Um, and the reason why I say that is so important, and in fact, it's actually goal today, is because think of just all the stuff that everybody has been through over these past 2.5 years. Okay. with everything, of course, with the pandemic, um, and just a lot of different things that have happened. People today have to be led with heart, and if you can lead them, by your own example and with heart, you'll get people to work for you, and they'll show up, every single day. It's also important to just to also be, very compassionate also with people, because once again, nobody knows, what you're going through on a personal level, and so it's important to, of course, to show all that side too as well. And so that's something, that I've also learned as well. And so yeah, there's a lot of things that have, definitely helped me to really get to the point, where I'm at. And I know that, for many of us that, when we left, we did not have, higher education, and I'm a big proponent of that should not stop us. Look, there's a lot of great companies out there that are looking to hire people like us. And I actually run in a circle of a lot of real estate people. And I tell them, I said, I guarantee you that I could be a better real estate agent than you can. Why? Because I can go knock on people's doors. I'm used to it. And it's not going to hurt my feelings if they say no or if they say, get the hell out of here, because I'm used to it. I don't care. Like, I'll do it all day long. And so I say that stuff, jokingly, but the fact is that there's a lot of great things that we have walked away with. And if you look at it that way, I can assure you that you can put those skills to work, and you'll be able to actually land something that's like super, super rewarding.
That
Um, in terms of, where my life is at, today, 2022 was or has been, a really good year. I left my last company in May of 2022. It was important that that happened as well too, because a lot of my emotional ties and my emotional state, they were also tied also to that company. Uh, they were essentially like my life raft that I came across in 2017. And it was important for me to once again to prove to myself that I can get off this raft and I can start to swim now. And so it was important that that happened. And so yeah, I've actually had a really good summer. I've actually traveled quite a bit actually this year. Just got back a couple of weeks ago. I was gone for about 2 weeks, and I actually traveled across California, Wyoming, Montana, and also Idaho. And so spent a lot of time outdoors. Have still had a lot of time to also work on myself. I will say something, that I want it to really come across loud and clear. The saying of that time cures everything is sadly not true in our case. What will cure us is the work that we put into ourselves. And the sooner that you face these things and the sooner that you deal with them head on, then you don't have to wait for time to go by. And the sooner you get that hard work done, I guarantee you can start to live a really, really full and happy life.
that is such a great way to end this interview. I usually say, is there anything you'd like to add? But I feel like that was like the cherry on the cake. That was so perfect.
That's pretty much it. And look, this is the other thing too that I'm super, super grateful for today is I'm grateful for for all the connections for those of us that are going through this journey, because it is one that is very difficult in the beginning, and we all need that support system. And I'll say that it's just great that we've been able to connect through all means of just, of course, different posts and also different groups that are out there too as well. And so that has been a huge advantage that anyone that's going through the transition right now, So I know what the mentality is that, well, those groups are just made up of a lot of apostates. And yeah, there are some very negative groups out there, but there are some groups that actually are super positive and that want to see you thrive. And that's who you want to connect yourself to, because you don't want to stay stuck in the past. You want to move forward.
So true, so true. And that's why like when I usually drop whatever I need to, like this interview, I'll probably like drop it on like 10 exJova's when it's Facebook page and I'll leave. Because I'm like, I don't want to be part of, I don't like reading people's posts. I don't like, I know that sounds super egotistical, but I'm like, I know I have a space in this space, but I also don't like to get caught up in all the craziness that's part of the group. Like my life is so not, my life is a normal person. I don't identify as an ex-witness at all. Like it's just, it's part of my past. Like we said, it's like a book that we put on the shelf that we no longer look at. Like I'm creating this channel because I want to show people, like we talked about before, that we are thriving, and there's a few of us, unfortunately. It's like less than 20%, and I would say 80% are still holding on to that anger, the rage, the sadness, and they don't want to get the help. They don't want to work with therapists, coaches. That's why I created this program. People are afraid. They're like, but who am I without this identity? Because we've had it for such a long time. I mean, I get it.
You're right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But
You're
thank you
right.
so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the channel. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope somebody resonates out there. I know that they will, and get some very good information for your story. Until next time.